Hello, Nearlynewmodels here with my first YouTube video. This is the installation video of the new Rotofury triple shot. Basically you're going from 1 mega dart to 3 zombie or elite darts. And I will show you how to do this installation of my 4-piece kit. You get a cylinder, a nozzle, a coupler, and a spring spacer. This is what your gun will look like when it gets done. You do not have to cut it exactly the same spots that I did. I tried to leave as much of the front of the gun as I could for structural reasons. But basically you can cut the gun anywhere you want. I wanted to leave this screw hole here for structure reasons. You will want to, if you leave this part on, you will want to widen the opening here so that the darts do not get hung up. If you just leave it a circle, the triple shot darts will get stuck in the gun. But here we are going to do show you how to install this kit. So first you will want to remove all the screws from the gun. There are a bunch of disassembly videos online that you can see how to do that. But basically just remove every screw that you can see, and there's 2 in the handle here. You remove those and then the whole top part of the gun will come off. Set it aside. And basically this is what the internals of your gun will look like. First thing you will have to do to get the original cylinder off of the gun is you will have to cut this front shaft. What I recommend is cutting the shaft approximately 15 millimeters or about a ½ inch from this end piece right here. The reason for that is you're going to be using my coupler to put the 2 pieces back together, so you want your cut as close to the middle of the coupler as possible. So you will cut this off with a hacksaw or a Dremel, whatever you prefer, set it aside, and now you will be able to remove the cylinder. But first, the easiest way I found out is this is all nylon, so this part is flexible. You have to remove this screw, and this screw. And I will go ahead and remove these 3 screws and then come back to the video. Now we're back. We have removed the screw here, and the screw here. So we will be able to remove the original cylinder off of the gun. So first thing you will do is you will remove this orange piece. And what you can do is kind of pick up on it, and it is spring loaded, and push on it and it will come out of here. Set that piece aside. The next is you've already removed this, so now you can pick up on this and this will flex. And so far I've done this numerous times and it has not hurt this shaft. So pick up and you will slide your orange cylinder off out of the gun. And here you can see the reason why we had to cut this shaft. There is a coupler here to join the 2 plastics together. This is not only clipped in, but also glued. I was not able to get this to come unglued no matter what I tried. I tried a heat gun, I tried soaking the entire front of the gun in a bucket of hot water. Nothing released this coupler. I was afraid to break it. If you can get it loose here, that would be a better solution than cutting here. But I was not able to get that apart, and I did not want to risk damaging this shaft here to try to remove this. So what we have now is we have our cylinder. So this is our spinner part. We want to set it aside, and basically there's a few parts that you will need off your original cylinder, and I will show you those right now. The spring and these 2 pieces, the spring, the shaft, and this clutch are inside this unit. And what this does is this allows you to rotate this cylinder inside the gun to load it. You will want to reuse this in my kit, these 3 pieces. In order to get those out, you will have to pretty much salvage this unit here. What I tried doing is unclipping all these clips. Most of them broke off, and then I realized not only is it clipped, it is glued here. So just pry this apart, and then these 3 pieces will spring out of there. So you want to use those in the cylinder that I provide. And you also need this front orange piece here. This front orange piece is also in this cylinder. You're going to reuse this. You basically just pull this out and set it aside, and you will use it with my new kit. So what we're going to do is we're going to install the spring and clutch and shaft. So you will take my cylinder, you will install this part in until it comes through the bottom of the cylinder. You will insert the clutch, and this is keyed, so it can only go in one way. You will insert it all the way down. Then you will set the spring in. The next thing you will do is you will take the nozzle And it is also keyed, but it is keyed and it twist locks. So you will push this spring in, insert that in there, and then twist it, and it will lock in. So now the spring and the clutch system is intact, and you can use that clutch to reload your gun. And then you will want to install this piece, which is also keyed, and it will snap in the end just like the original. So now you have this part. One thing before you assemble the gun back together, there is one other modification that I neglected to mention. You will need to take a Dremel or a sander and grind this ridge out on both sides of the shell. The reason for that is because with the new cylinder, this will hang up and cause it not to spin as free. And it will actually cause a drag on there, and you want it to be able to spin and fire as fast as possible. So just smooth this out. You don't have to get it just perfect. I just barely grinded this. You can smooth it as much as you want, but basically just hit that and take the high edge off of it. One other thing too that you'll want to keep in mind before you assemble the gun, this has happened to me a couple of times, is this trigger mechanism right here will actually pick up and move and get caught on this little tab here. So when you put your trigger back in, and then you spend all this time putting the gun back together, it will not fire. And you'll wonder, why doesn't it fire? So then you have to take the gun all the way back apart again. So you might want to look at that and just make sure that it's picked up and that the little lip here is on the right side of this notch so that it works this mechanism here. And then it's safe to put the gun back together. So now we just go to assembling the gun back together. Alright, so now we're going to install the cylinder. So you take your little sprocket that you set aside, and it is also keyed. It has a notch in it, and the shaft has a notch on it. So go ahead and put that on, and then you will slide this whole unit back on the shaft. Like I said, you don't want to force it too high up, but this is flexible enough that you will be able to get it on without disassembling the entire gun. And it does not hurt this nylon shaft. So this is the easiest way I've found to install it. So now, and then you put this coupler in like that, and now this is installed. So you'll take your little orange guide, and the easiest way I found to install it is this is spring loaded, and it goes in this notch right here. I found if you pick up on this sprocket a little bit and work it into between the teeth, it will actually position itself back down and drop in. Then you will want to make sure that this is in the proper position too. This is what holds the sprocket in place. Okay. Alright, now we put our screws back in. We're going to put the two screws with the small head here and here, and the screw with the large washer head in here. Alright, we put our screws back in. The one with the washer goes here, and the two without go here. And now we will want to do our connector on the front. I'm using the silver one so you can see it good on the video. Slide this on until it touches the front, and then drill a 1/16 of an inch hole or a smaller hole that is smaller than the threads on the screw, because you will want the screw to create its own threads. You don't want the hole too big. If you actually drill the hole too big, it'll be okay, because these screws are long enough to go completely through the coupler and into the other side. So they will still go through the shaft. It'll just possibly wobble. Also, these holes on my coupler kit are countersunk for these particular screws. So when you screw the screw in, it does not catch on anything. And speaking of catching, I failed to neglect to mention that there is one other shell mod that you will have to do. You will want to take this area here and round this out more so that the coupler will fit in this area. You can probably see it better on this side of the shell. So that the coupler will slide through there. So you will want to make this area bigger. And the reason for that is when you pump it, this will not catch. So then we put this piece here, and then we slide it on until the two pieces meet. One other thing you can do here, if you don't feel confident about this union, you can actually put some epoxy or some super glue in here, and then put these two pieces together, drill a hole, put a screw in, and it will possibly never come apart again. But if you ever want to take the gun apart and remove your cylinder for any reason, I would not recommend that. I've noticed that this holds sufficiently well, that you will not need to glue it. So now we have this part installed. The last thing I want to show you is the spring power spacer. The reason I designed this spacer is because if you look here, the dart difference in weight is pretty significant. The Mega Dart weighs approximately 2.5, 2.6, 2.4 grams, whereas 3 Elite Darts or Zombie Darts weigh 2.9 to 3 grams. So they are quite heavier. So to make up for the loss of power and range, we're going to want to install the spring spacer. The easiest way I found to do that is go ahead and prime your gun, and that will compress your spring. And I already have the spring spacer installed, so you can see it here. It is gray, and you can see with the spring spacer installed that the spring is completely compressed and in a straight line. When you prime your gun, you're probably going to see that there's gaps in the spring and that the spring is slightly curved. That's power you're losing. So what you want to do is take this with the tapered end. The slant taper goes towards the spring, and compress the spring somehow with a pair of pliers or whatever, and slide this in. And it will actually slide down on the shaft, and the spring will push back on it. And these 3 cross section here will lock into this piston. So that way it's locked in and will stay. One other thing I noticed for modifications, this is not really a modification video, but if you want while you're in here, one thing you can do is, I noticed that the piston does not make a very good seal in here. You can do the standard electrical tape around the piston and then put the O-ring back on to make a better, tighter seal. I would probably recommend doing that. Also, another thing that you might notice here is when you have this piston pumped all the way back, there's a slot 1/4 away on the cylinder. So when this fires, 20% of your air is going to come out this hole here. There's another one on the other side. So I would recommend that you put tape over this or epoxy or something to try to cover this up. So that way you can get probably quite a bit more airflow. I have not tested that to see what happens, but I would assume that that would be a pretty good mod that you'd want to do. So now that you have all of this installed, you want to go ahead and fire the gun to go ahead and relieve the stress off the spring. Alright, so now we have the tension off of it. We're going to put this back together. So what you will do is you will line this up here. You will take your shell and you'll put the 2 halves back together. Like so. You'll put the 2 pieces back together so that they meet like so. And then put your screws in. Really, the only 2 screws you need to start playing with it are these 2 here in the handle, and then you can test fire it. See what you think. These 2 here, and you will see that where I cut the front of the gun, it is very tight up here. There is no play here. You could drop this gun down like this and it's not going to hurt it. I just wanted to show a little bit better of what I've cut here so you can see. I've taken the corners off of this part here, and as you can see, the opening is rather large, as big an opening as you could possibly make in here. It's basically up to you on how much you want to cut and customize this. One thing I did notice is if you leave this open like it is right here, when you fire the gun, it will fire more of a spread like a shotgun. And that may be exactly what you're looking for, but one thing I wanted to show you, if you want a tighter grouping, just insert your original barrel into the hole that you've cut, and then push the barrel back until it locks in about here, and you will see that it's really close to the darts. So you want that probably actually a little bit closer, and it will actually snap back in. So now you have a barrel. Now when you fire the gun, you get a lot tighter grouping. So it's really all on what you want. Do you want a spread or do you want a tight grouping? So here is the new Rotofury triple shot from Nearly New Models. I will do another video testing the firepower of this gun at a later time. Thank you for watching.